This is my latest playthrough. This one is for Street Rod SE, which is under development by a guy named Marco. I actually can't pronounce his last name. It's spelled Kleijer. And he has combined Street Rod 1 with the car discs available at that time for a completely new version, in essence. And it's ideal for DOSBox. It has a lot of the same features of Street Rod 1, such as the period license. And then it also has the classified, same as before. The key difference is that the historic cars are different because they're from the car disc. The 63 Corvette's no longer available, but other cars are. For example, 53 Buick Skylark, which is considered classic today. The Buick Special is another one. What is a little bit strange is that the most competitive of all these cars isn't, at least for starters, is not one that you would expect. And the most competitive of all is probably the 63 Ford T-Bird there, which again is kind of a strange choice for them. I don't know if that's really realistic. And the mods are similar to Street Rod 1. But the most competitive car to start with is the 1939 Pontiac. Basically because it's the cheapest, and it's relatively easy to mod. So I'm buying it there. And you can actually start it out with the 6-cylinder. Here, I'm going to kill the radio. You can put the tri-carb on it and give it a 4-speed transmission, and then it's pretty competitive, actually, which is not true in Street Rod 2 with any of the cars. The 6-cylinder is something you have to get rid of first to put a big block in the car. And then nothing else really matters. Street Rod 1 and Street Rod SE are the opposite in that you want to balance the car out pretty well. So you buy some extra carbs, 2 of them to be exact, and then you get the tri-carb manifold for GM there in this case. And you install that on the existing 6-cylinder. I don't know how authentic this 6-cylinder is. It certainly wouldn't have been a V6 in 1939. My sense is that it's just the generic V6 for a Street Rod that has little to do with reality. The auto transmission would also not be available in 1939. But if you notice, the top speed is 97 stock, which is maybe faster than the original. But as you'll see, when we put the tri-carbs on the 6, it becomes okay. It's actually faster with the 6-cylinder and the tri-carb than it is with a basic 283 V8 with a 4-barrel on it, which is worth noting. It probably wouldn't be the case in Street Rod 2, although I haven't tested that theory. What I do know is that this setup does not work in Street Rod 2. It just is not competitive at all. So we put the 3rd carb on there. Then we tune, because you always have to tune when you reconfigure the engines, just like in real life. Now this top speed is 103, which is a little bit faster than the V8. So then we change out the transmission, but to do that, we need to be able to afford it. So we sell the 2-barrel manifold, and then we go back to the classifieds, get the 4-speed transmission for GM. One thing I noticed in this version is that there's a universal transmission there too for $275. I don't know if that's from Street Rod 1 or whether it's from the car discs. I've never noticed it before. But the basic 4-speed is $250. Notice it's much less than the racing 4-speed, which you would not be able to afford at this point in the game. But this is still a huge improvement over the automatic. So it's a must, especially because you're still running with the 6-cylinder. So, install the 4-speed. Bolt it in. And then there's a little bit of money left over, especially once we sell the automatic transmission here. So it makes sense at this point to, first of all, check to see how it did, but I already know that that's 110 miles an hour. So we put racing slicks on it. That's a good finishing touch so that it can handle well. Again, you want a well-balanced car that can deal with a variety of situations in the beginning. Again, opposite approach from Street Rod 2, where you just need brute force. And then the slicks go on there. They're actually the same design, notice, or almost the same design as in Street Rod 1 and Street Rod 2. The stock wheels you keep generally, because when you try to resell them, you get the offer of, I'll take them off for you for free. So that doesn't really cut it, obviously. But you do sell off the other stuff. I'm going to skip through that here. 110 miles an hour, notice, for the maximum speed. So we have the part selling. The part selling is from the shelf there, same as when you choose parts. But like I said, I'm going to skip those steps. We're going to go to the street, and we will try our first race. I expect to do decently well, but of course we won't be able to go after the fastest cars, only things that are vulnerable. So the Chrysler Town & Country here has a big V8 engine, or maybe a small V8 engine, but it's a very big car, so it's not going to be very competitive. We'll test it anyway in a drag race, just to make sure. So here we go. And this car will be not blazing fast, but fast enough, I hope. And I'm right, it doesn't take off the line extremely fast. And there, it's not even at 100 miles an hour, but it's left the Chrysler behind. This is more than an actual quarter mile, so it'll take a little while to get to the finish line here. And there it is. And then it makes sense to race for pink slips, because in computer gaming, often your opponent is an idiot. So we know we can beat this car. So here we go. So again, takes us a little bit of time to get off the line. He rams us there, but we're still on our way. Obviously, an advantage of a slower car is that you can keep it on the road a little bit more easily than a faster one, especially if you have the slicks. This car is just about the right balance of handling and speed, considering that it's not one of the fastest cars in the game with the best handling. Some of the parameters can't be changed by modding, which is similar to real life. So here we have to attack the curves. Actually, I'm squealing the tires here, but it's actually reasonably easy to drive this car on this course. Most of the courses in Street Rod 2 are actually harder than this, like Mulholland and all them. Very hard. This is, reasonable challenge. But when you have a car that's medium speed with good tires, it's reasonably competitive. So here we have this narrow section there, and then I'm going around the corner here. And if I go through a few more here, if I can avoid sliding off the road, it should be reasonably competitive. Oh, almost ran off the road there. Going around one more curve here. And then we have the false ending there with the highway sign. And then the real ending. So then that gives us the car, and we drive it home. But I'm not going to keep it. It obviously makes sense to sell it. That's the only point of this race at this point, because I need a lot more money to mod the Pontiac.